So welcome to the shop. Today we're going to talk about the sections of the inch. Very rarely will you actually measure something that's 1 inch long, but we need to understand the different sections of an inch, because in woodworking or in construction, a quarter, an eighth, a 16th of an inch will matter greatly. So we're going to talk about how do we break apart this section of an inch. Now, the woodworking we do in this shop will be in inches. It will not be in the metric system. And so we need to understand the difference between 1.5 inches and 2 1/4 inches. Let's do this figuring. So we start with 0 inches and we go to 1 inch. And that's pretty simple. That's a whole number. There's nothing about it. So it's all about fractions. So we're constantly dividing 1 inch by a certain number. So if I divide 1 by 2, it is a half. And so 1 divided into 2 equal sections will give me 1/2. And that's pretty simple. So I actually made 1 into 2 sections. So if I want to make 1 into 4 sections, change the color for you. If I want to divide 1 into 4 sections, so I have I will now have 1/4 of a section there. I will have 2/4 of a section, but we rarely write that down. We will for this example only. And then we have 3/4 of a section, and we have 4/4 of a section. And so we divided 1 into 4 sections. Continuing on, then we divide 1 into 8 sections. And so we will have 1/8. We will have 2/8. We will have 3/8. 1/2 would be 4/8. 5/8. 3/4 would be 6/8. And then we would have 7/8. And we know that 1 would be 8/8, because that would be whole, right? That would be all the pieces of a pie, if you will. And so the smallest figure that we would actually use in a woodworking shop is the 16th. So we're dividing 1 into 16 equal sizes. So if we just put little dash marks in here, we know that this would be 1/16. 1/8 would become 2/16. We're not going to write that because that would get reduced to 1/8 anyhow. This would become 3/16. 5/16, 7/16, 9/16, 11/16, 13/16, and 15/16. Something that you will notice is that all the numerators up here, except for this example, which we'll just discard, all the numerators are odd. All the denominators are even. If a numerator is even, it must be reduced. This is how we read fractions. Why is this important? The saw blades in here, on a table saw, the saw blade is 1/8 of an inch wide. That means that every time you cut the wood, you remove 1/8 of an inch from that piece of wood. So if you don't measure to the correct distance, you're already 1/8 of an inch behind. That's unacceptable on a piece of furniture, to have a gap that is 1/8 of an inch wide. Once in a while, we have to figure out halves. A quick rule, anytime I want to divide any of these fractions in half, is I just have to double the numerator. So if I want to find half of 3/4, I have to double the denominator. So half of 3/4 is going to become 3/8. So all I did was double the denominator size. Why did we talk about this? We talked about this because the next project you're going to go into is something called board footage, where we have to actually measure the boards out, and we have to be able to read the ruler. We can do the math in decimal form, but our rulers aren't written in decimal forms. Now you can convert this. We know that half is 0.5 when it comes to the decimal system. We know that 3/4 is 0.75. Do you know what 5/8 is? You know, 5/8 is a 0.625. You can divide this on your calculator. You might have a chart that says this, but we need to be able to understand this first, and then we can convert to the decimal form if you want to do the next project with your calculator. Welcome to the wood shop. Today we are going to talk about measuring board footage. We're going to talk about, some terminology. What is board footage? What do we define as length, width, thickness? And then some other terminology would be your face, your edge, and your end, and how do those apply to the board in general. Board footage is a volume. I lost my marker. Board footage is a volume. It is figured in inches cubed. And so we have a standard for volume of any board, and that standard is 144 cubic inches. Later we will get into where that number actually comes from. One of the first terms that we need to know is length. Length is going to be in the direction of the grain. So if I have a board here, this will be the length. So you will see grains going in this direction. If we talk about width, width will be in this. It will go across the grain. If we talk about thickness, thickness is just how thick that board is. I have an example here for you where this board is long in this direction, it is wide in this direction, and then thick is across. And so once again, if we talk about in the length with the grain, this big flat part will be called the face. The long, thinner section will be called the edge, and that won't show up for you, but I'm writing it. The edge, and then this thin part along the end is called the end. So let's talk about the standard of what board footage is. The first thing we need to always figure out is what is the standard and how it's figured. So the standard for one board footage is going to be a board that is 12 inches by 12 inches by 1 inch thick. So if we do the math on that, we know that length times width times thickness is all divided by 144. So 144 is our number. So I have 12 times 12 times 1 divided by 144 equals 144 divided by 144, which is 1 board foot. Who decided that 144 who decided that 12 by 12 by 1 is it? I don't know, but that's the standard, that's what's been decided, so that's what we base all of our calculations off of. So let's do it. So we left off talking about board footage, and standard for board footage is 144. So we're going to do a little problem here. I have a board that has been machined down. It is currently 12 inches long, it is 3 inches wide, and it is 0.75 or 3/4 of an inch. So if I do the math on that, I know that 12 times 3 times 0.75, and I divide that by 144. So 3 times 12 times 0.75 is equal to 26. We divide that by 144 again, and that will give us 0.18 board feet. So 12 times 3 times 0.75 is 26 cubic inches, divided by 144 cubic inches, giving us 0.18 board feet. So that is the volume or the board footage.